So that's right. So the topic I chose for my presentation is, I thought I would keep it humble and go for the most ultimate, question of philosophy. Why is there something rather than nothing? So this is the ultimate why of, the entirety of philosophy. Because look, everything else, the why of everything else leads to this, right? Why is there something rather than nothing? Or why does the world exist? Not how the world is the mystical, but that it is, said Wittgenstein in his Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. So it's basically like that, right? Because you ask, like, why do we have to, maintain ethics? Why do we have to live an ethical life? Why do we have to, live a productive life? Because you exist. And why do you exist? Because the world exists. So why does the world exist? All questions, if you look closely enough, is going to regress into this final question, that is, the gap of, human understanding. So, right, let's try to go into this question, and see like the past and the progress of the question, how the different paradigms from which it is looked at, all the way from ancient metaphysics to modern cosmology. Okay, so the fundamental question: why does the universe exist at all? Why is there something rather than nothing? So it has, many aspects. Like people have tried to answer it from, attack it from all sides, from the scientific side, from from exercise acrobatics of philosophy, and finally the mystics apparently say that they have an answer, but they won't tell anyone. Let's see how it works. Okay, so let's start right from the beginning. Let's go back 2,500 years. One of the first texts that really philosophically ponders the existence of the world and the relation of the self with the universe and everything is Rig Veda, and in it there is the creation hymn. I think it is very famous. I suppose, does anyone know the real name? I've just written creation hymn, but Kishan, I suppose you know that. Yeah, Nastagya Sutra, right? Nasat, Nasadya, yes, Nasadya Sutra. So it is really one of the most interesting hymns in the Rig Veda, and in it talks about. If you want, I can read a little bit from it. Okay, so the hymn starts and goes like this. Then there was neither non-existence nor existence. Then there was neither space nor the sky beyond. What covered it? Where was it? What sheltered it? Was there water in depths unfathomed? Then there was neither death nor immortality, nor was there then the division between night and day. That one breathed breathlessly and self-sustaining. There was that one then, and there was no other. So this hymn is really interesting in the sense that it's very unorthodox to the other definitions, theological definitions of the existence and structure of the universe, because in this verse it is almost like the verse itself does not guarantee anything. It is not it is not standing on any particular dogma of how the world was or how it wasn't. It just describes that. It just describes the sheer inability of understanding this incomprehensible leap between existence and non-existence. So in that, okay, some points from Rig Veda is there was neither being nor non-being, and it was all in an undifferentiated jumble, right? And comes another another statement from it is that and who can say whence did it all come and how did creation happen? The gods themselves are later than creation. So who knows truly whence this great creation sprang? He, whether he fashioned it or whether he did not, he who surveys it all from the highest heaven, he knows, or maybe even he does not know. right? So it is a radical acceptance of our uncertainty. It is like facing this question head on, like how we stand before the question. About 2500 years ago, even it seems, even the thinker 2500 years ago was standing before this abyss of a question, just like we are now. We think like the people in the past had all filled up their logical gaps just like that, right? That they had already accepted that the God is the creator of the universe, and this life is a test, and yeah, everything lies beyond. But still you can see the hints of this, this great wonder, this great regressive wonder that goes on in the human brain even from 1500 years ago. Okay, wait, this all right. So the next, okay, key point we arrive at is Parmenides. Oh wait, but before that, all right, I didn't give you like an idea of the early cosmogonies. So cosmogony means like theories regarding the origin of the universe, right? So we just discussed the Vedic, and then even in the other ideas in the early times, there was never yet a conception of pure nothingness. Whatever was created from something that was before. For example, the Greeks were looking for the first principle of existence, of creation, and for them, like many people traced it down to different elements. Like I guess Anaximander said like it was water. Heraclitus said it was fire. It was not Anaximander. Tails. I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. So Anaximander, I believe, he said it was from ether, right, sir? And okay, so these people, for them also, their definitions already implied something that had to be the base out of which creation sprang forth. And in Tao, okay, in like okay, Tao is like the ancient Chinese philosophy, and according to Tao, like this undefinable principle called the Tao is itself the base of all things. The Tao created the one created the two, and the two created the 10,000, is what is said in the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. Okay, so okay, all right. So earlier up, it was the most fundamental question was kind of reduced to this fact that what the world is made of. The idea of true nothingness was not something that naturally occurred to the ancient mind. And then comes Parmenides, and he is from like the Greek school, and he kinds of like makes this, he puts it out verbally. He is the first one to address nothingness. So, and for him, he says that being is and not being is not, and nothing cannot produce something. In the sense that okay, for him this was his logical like this was his logical exercise. He says that being cannot arise out of non-being, right? Nothing cannot create something. Neither can being arise out of being, because there was already being in the beginning. Nothing has to arise again then, right? So and hence the conclusion that reality is eternal and ungenerated. There can be no process of some kind of generation, some kind of birth, because if only being, being cannot produce being, because being already is. And then, and therefore there can be no concept of non-being, and non-being cannot exist before whatever existence is, because non-being cannot give birth to being, to existence. So that was his, you can see a classical style of Greek logician at work in this discourse. And then, okay, the next game changer comes from the theologists. Okay, that was creation ex nihilo. ex nihilo, that is creation from nothing. Even in the, in the early days, like, right, let's go to Abrahamic religions. So even in Abrahamic religions, in the beginning, like, the book of Genesis, if you look at the book of Genesis, the idea is that, right, okay, there was, okay, in the book of Genesis, the world was called forth into order by some kind of, like, from out of, earth and water, which was beyond void and form. So in the original text, in the original scripture, it was something like, there was something out of which the world was created, was called forth by God into order. But then around the first, and okay, and that was in the Jewish text, right? But then in the spring forth of Christianity, like, they felt that it was, a little bit of, undermining the power of God for him to require some substance out of which he had to create the world. And so, the theological, the theophilosophers, they just came out with this doctrine that, creation ex nihilo, and thereby God fills the gap between existence and non-existence, because he created the world out of nothing, right? And then it also, so arising first in Christian thought, it then also got like inherited by Islam as well. And they say, like, kun fayakun is a verse in Islam. It says, be and it is, and that is how the world sprang forth. God said be, and it was, it became. Kun fayakun. I guess all of you must, yeah, absolutely, must have at least heard the Kawal. Okay, but then, okay, so this, okay, and so at this juncture is where, like, even though this, it was kind of an exercise to, to stand on the dogma, to, increase the political power of God, to increase, the authority of God. Though it was kind of an exercise like that, this became a game changer for the thought, because this is the first instance where nothing was conceived as an isolated idea, right? That there could have been nothing from which a true nothing, out of which suddenly, incomprehensibly, we have all sprang forth. Creation ex nihilo. And then here comes Leibniz, and Leibniz is the man who first coins the title of this presentation. How did something come from nothing? Right? And for Leibniz, okay, there is the principle of sufficient reason. Everything that exists must have existence. Everything that exists must be justified by a reason for its existence. But then, so the entire universe, so the existence of the universe as a whole must also have a reason, and it requires explanation. And for him, like, and even Leibniz being a big supporter of the church, and him getting a, great support from the church as well, the man had to, outsource the reason to God. And for him, God was the one necessary being. God was a necessary being because the universe needed a reason for existence, and so God is the ultimate necessity, and therefore he exists, right? And he created the world. So his non-existence is logically impossible, is what Leibniz is trying to imply. But then, look, philosophers don't, leave any such, like, any explanations like that unchallenged. So thus comes human Kant to tear down Leibniz's argument, like, because Leibniz, what he did is he asked a really profound question, and then he suddenly just he he suddenly dropped the ball right when it had to start rolling. He just stopped the ball right when it had to start rolling by saying, "It is God." There you have it. But then Hume says like existence itself may not need a cause because our own cognitions are what look for cause and effect in the universe in existence, and so yeah, causation is just could be a habit of cognizance. So like Leibniz's principle of sufficient reason itself stands challenged by Hume, and then he also says that something like okay, and he also challenges the logical impossibility of non-existence because um, no the logical impossibility of uh, the existence non-existence of God, because he says the only logical impossibilities of existence can be like there can only be a logical impossibility of existence, for example like a square circle, right, or a round triangle, but there can be no logical impossibility of non-existence. No, sorry, there can be no logical impossibility of existence, right? Anything that can be conceived as existing can also be conceived as non-existing, and that goes for God as well. And then yeah, Kant himself says that Kant also goes along the same argument, where reality and ideas of conceiving the universe like causality all are just a part of the human cognitive structure of reasoning, and therefore again Leibniz's argument stands crumbled here. And then comes Heidegger. So Heidegger Heidegger just takes this question, and for him the question is not about the answer, but the question forms the base of a wandering mind, of perhaps an existential mind. For him, the question, why the world exists, is derived from the question of why do I exist, right? And of why, and it is there with us in every moment of our being. From the time we wake up, from the time we go, we struggle after our daily lives, after and whatever we do. At the end, it is all a seeking towards. It is a seeking, and it is like a performativity of performing according to the definitions of the same question: why does the world exist? So for him, it is a question not to be solved but to be confronted throughout the course of your life, and 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 it is in our ability to rest with the mystery, in our ability to solve the mystery in real time, and as we to solve it, as it like in an unending quest, is the yeah creates the meaning for the modern man. For someone like okay, so for someone after the Enlightenment, for someone for whom God is dead, like Nietzsche presumed. So the entire question like of existence comes down to this question. So it can be taken as an existential exercise to ponder upon, to keep pondering upon, and not to be satisfied with any simple dogmatic answer to. Okay, and so then we have modern physics. As it develops, it gave very interesting. It gave very proper theories with the mathematics as well, right to the point of right to the point of creation, but perhaps not beyond it. But let's see. So Einstein came up with relativity, right? And then the mathematics of relativity led to the assumption, led to the implication that the universe is either expanding or contracting, right? And but then Einstein just looked away from that during his career, because for him, um, like, yeah, he was just too indoctrinated by, the previous model of the universe, like that was inherited from the Greeks, that the universe is ever existing, right? And it, I mean, even Newton and the other scientists also, until Einstein, had gone along with the same doctrine, that the universe never had a beginning and it is a steady state, it is eternal and unchanging. But then the implications of Einstein's relativity says the universe is expanding, and it was a theologian like Lemaitre, who asked the real question, who confronted the real question. So if the universe is expanding, then then through the river, like, if you reason backwards, there would have been a time at which the universe was reduced to a single spot, right? A single primordial atom. And so, like, the implication is that space-time has a beginning, and there is indeed, in fact, a beginning of the universe, before which what existed we do not know. So it leads to the Big Bang, and all our mathematics is consistent right up to that point where it reaches infinite density and infinite potential, and that is where it collapses, where we cannot seek, where further explanations from physics are yet to come, right? And that was, in summary, the Big Bang theory, right? And the Big Bang theory, one of something very interesting is that Lemaitre was a theologian, right? He was a Christian theologian, and he wanted to he sought out this line of reason, and led to the establishment of the Big Bang theory to actually prove the Bible, the biblical account of creation. Because for him it was like a Big Bang is kind of just like is parallel with the biblical statement, the scriptural statement, let there be light, right? And creation actually sprung forth. There was a creation in time, is what it seems to imply. And for them, for at this time, with the popularization of the Big Bang was very good news for the church at that time. They accepted it as one of the greatest, like, ever testimony given by science as well to the divine origin of the universe. But now, the church is even at fault with the Big Bang, which was ironically, architected by Lemaitre, a theologian. Okay, and then comes quantum theory. So this is the latest advancements of science, according to which, there could have been a quantum vacuum, like the quantum fields of energy out of which particles emerge. So before existence, before the Big Bang or whatever, before the emergence of the universe, there could have been just a quantum vacuum, but still it is not equal to true, like, philosophical nothingness, the idea of non-conception. So it is just kind of postponing the question, right? Because there is even before, like, the universe sprang forth, there must have been a quantum vacuum, and there must have been the laws of physics. But then from where came the laws of physics, the quantum vacuum? The question still goes on, trickles on. So physics stops short of true nothingness. And finally, then we have the mystics. They say, like, the meaning is not something to be, right, to be cognitively, like, or linguistically put down. It's not something that can be put forth in, like, symbolic expression. in language or in mathematics, but rather it is something that is experiential. And yeah, the answer to all your questions regarding the existential anxiety, existential malaise comes from your own experiential, intuitive understanding of the universe and the creator and the creation, which cannot be explained, which cannot be, put forth into doctrine. For them, all doctrine is just symbolic things that is pointing to something that can only be understood by looking into your own self with, arduous wisdom and discipline and consistency, and through meditation, obviously, right? And yeah, for them, all of this, even this statement, Advaita, the Brahman alone is real, is just a statement for them. It does not go into the crux of being. I mean, it does not put the truth forward to you. The truth is something that you have to experience for the mystic. But these are just at their best, they can just point towards some heavenly glory that, yeah, that cannot be put into words. So yeah, and for the mystic, like the logic of the mystic is basically that the universe and everything in it, like, so you are a product of the creation itself, right? And so hence, to look in yourself might lie the answer of everything as well, because since you are just, a continuity of the universe itself, inside yourself is the reflection, is the answer. So just look into yourself, is what mysticism says. And yeah, so that is the status of the question of why does the world exist, from where did we come, and the answer is still in progress, still loading. Let's hope one day we reach.